Hello, my name is Carolina Yarnazian, and I currently serve as a counselor and coordinator at the Dream Resource Center at Los Angeles City College. And I attended Glendale Community College as a student from 2005 to about 2007, 2008, and then I took a couple classes after that there. I immigrated from Buenos Aires, Argentina to the US, to Los Angeles specifically, in 2001. And my initial experience in the United States was just shocking and just confusing. Back when I think of 2001, I remember just feeling kind of lost in school with the language, just really not understanding the structures of things, the navigating high school as a 14-year-old. So my initial experience in the United States was kind of just shocking, some fear, some confusion, but also an underlying feeling of excitement to be in a new place where things had a promise to be better for myself and my family. Nonetheless, it still was scary to be in a new place, to meet new classmates, to be in a new school, to have to learn a new language. So that was kind of my initial experience, and I can recall one specific moment when in one of the first days in high school, one of my classmates asked me for my schedule, and I just had like 4 or 5 different pieces of paper, and I just kept handing them the different ones, and they said, no, that's not it. So to that level, I was very confused. But there was also, again, a lot of excitement to come to the United States, especially Los Angeles, Southern California, and live in a place that had more promise, more safety than what my family had been experiencing for many years in Argentina. One thing that I like to share a little about my background is that my background is Armenian. My great-grandfamily, right, was born in Armenia, but they left Armenia because of the Armenian genocide in 1915, and slowly just were born in different places, right? So my grandma was born in France, my grandpa was born in the US, which is the reason why my parents thought, oh, that will be an easy process to immigrate and live in the United States. That's on my dad's side. And then on my mom's side, my grandparents were born in Lebanon and then in Argentina. So it's a history of immigration that underlies my family. But unfortunately, I've never had the luck to go to Armenia. However, I did go to Armenian school for many years back in Argentina. So I think that's interesting and a big part also of what makes me who I am, because I've got much to me, right? And actually that's one of the reasons why, to understand myself better, I studied cultural anthropology, to understand myself, my culture, who am I, right? So that's, I think, an important piece to my story. One of the biggest challenges I faced when I arrived in the United States, I think, aside from financial, because my family and I were undocumented when we overstayed our visas, our tourist visas, in the US. So with that comes a lot of different pieces to challenges, right? So because the challenge was, being undocumented, that came with not being able to work a traditional job, right? Like a 9 to 5. My parents couldn't, work at Macy's or work, a retail store or anything like that. They had to get creative about what they could do, and without knowing the language, without knowing the system, it was a big challenge for them, which of course impacted me and my siblings, because we were relying on my family to support us financially. So that was one of the biggest challenges, and the papers part impacted other parts, right? So a sense of belonging, thinking, am I really supposed to be here? I think that's something that we internalized for many years and are just now, starting to understand a little more, but those are pieces that we internalized, right? One other big challenge is also learning the language. I think that piece is like one of the foundational ones, because once we learned, right, at different levels, my whole family, right, we were able to move forward in some of the goals that we had. So for myself, I've always really liked school, and I was frustrated when I started school and I couldn't understand my teachers. So I could understand some of it, right? I was placed in ESL level 3, right? English as a second language, but I couldn't understand it very well. I couldn't communicate well, and that was frustrating. Or I couldn't just go home and watch TV to unwind, which was something that I was used to doing back home. So some of these challenges were difficult to overcome. The papers, that's something that took for me about 12 years to adjust, even though my parents had petitioned for adjusting their status before we actually immigrated to the States. I came in 2001. That was, when the 9/11 attacks happened. So it was a year where a lot of things changed and many things just slowed down in regards to legal immigration to the States. So I was able to adjust that 12 years later, and then I was able to actually petition my parents after that. So I feel very lucky to be able to say that, because it was something that lingered for many years and at many points seemed like such a huge impediment to my career, to many pieces. The financial, I will say shortly that my family was very creative. I think the immigrant community is a community of entrepreneurs, and my mom and my dad became, independent contractors. My dad worked as a camera repairman and worked, repairing different cameras and was contracted to do that. And my mom pretty much created her own landscaping business and still has that business today. So that helped to resolve some financial stress, but of course the financial was always something that kind of lingered for a while, but it really did help to think creatively about income generating opportunities that didn't require traditional work that my parents were unable to do. With my experience learning English, it was very difficult at first. Actually, I didn't know that in my high school I was in the ESL track. So I just thought at one point that nobody in the US understood English, really. Of course, I had struggles with understanding English, but all my peers were learning English. So I was in this bubble where I didn't really understand why that was the case, that everyone was learning. And then until I put a lot of effort, of course, and was able to graduate from ESL, right, and then go on to regular English, I should say, right? So and that's the more traditional English, right, the AP, advanced placement, right? Until then, I didn't really understand how the system worked. So my experience learning English, it was challenging at first, but also exciting challenge for me. As someone who really enjoyed school, I kind of realized this is something I'm gonna absolutely need, and something my parents really stressed to learn. And I continued. So actually reading was one of the biggest ways that I feel like I learned English. I actually read Harry Potter when I was in Buenos Aires. I read it in Spanish, and then when I came to the States, I wanted to continue reading it, and I read it in English. And slowly but surely, I read all the books and continued learning, and putting a lot of effort into learning English, because I knew that in order to take elective classes, I needed to actually learn English really well. So that was something that was really critical, that I saw very early on that I was going to need, and that it was gonna have to be done.